And welcome to the second part of Talking Europe on France 24. It's probably the most closely watched election since the beginning of the Eurozone crisis. This Sunday, Greek voters may elect the first radical left government in the EU's history. The anti-establishment Syriza party, led by the charismatic Alexis Tsipras, is ahead in opinion polls. Tsipras has promised to have half of Greece's international debt written off, erased, when the current bailout deal ends. But the possibility of a left-wing victory in Athens has sparked fears that Greece could default on its debt and exit from the euro. So what will really happen if Syriza wins this election? I'll be joined in the show by two key players: Greece's outgoing Europe minister and later Syriza's foreign policy coordinator. Well, joining me from Athens, Dimitris Kourkoulas, thank you very much for being with us.
My pleasure.
Now, you've served until now as the Europe minister in Mr. Samaras's governing coalition. And Mr. Samaras obviously comes from the biggest centre-right party, New Democracy. What's the mood in the coalition? Do you believe that Samaras can still win this election?
According to the opinion polls, it is Syriza who is leading in the opinion polls. But of course we have to wait till the elections on Sunday to know what will be the outcome. But most probably Syriza could be the first party. But what is more important is that the challenges that any government will have to face on Monday are so big that, in my view, only a very big coalition with a very wide popular support could face these challenges.
It's been a very divisive campaign. Antonis Samaras, the outgoing Prime Minister, has waged an aggressive campaign against Syriza, warning Greek voters that the anti-austerity party could lead the country to bankruptcy. The message of the coalition basically is that there is no alternative to the bailout. Let me ask you, would you say that there is no alternative to the current situation?
I think that when Greece entered the crisis in 2010, I think indeed there was no other alternative because we could go to a wild bankruptcy that could be an even bigger catastrophe than the one that we have experienced. But of course now there is room for alternative policies. There is room for giving more emphasis to growth, and in this respect the decisions taken by the European Central Bank yesterday are very important, not only for Greece but for the European Union, for the Eurozone as a whole. So of course there is always the room to discuss and to improve, but there is no doubt in my mind that any Greek government will have to respect its commitments and then have to discuss, as we always do, among European partners.
Do you understand the anger of these Greek voters who say, look, nothing can be worse than what we have now, so why not try Syriza after all? Why not give Mr. Tsipras a chance?
No, I fully understand, because as I said, what happened in the Greek society and economy in the last 5 years is like a tsunami, minus 25% of our GDP, record unemployment, although unemployment is getting slowly down in the last 10 months. There is no doubt that this was a very catastrophic period in the economic and the social field. But what we are trying to explain to our citizens is that now we are very near to the exit. The perspectives for growth in 2015 and 2016 are really very confirmed. We have managed to reduce our deficit from the record of 16% of the GDP below 3%. We have, for the first time in our balance of payment, a positive balance after many decades, which means the Greek economy has become more competitive. Of course, this is not visible yet to the pocket, to the everyday life of our citizens, and it will be a pity after so many sacrifices to sacrifice what has been achieved so far. So I understand their anger, but I think that the anger is not the best way to look to the future. We believe that, of course, there is a need for an adjustment of policies in many fields, but we have to do it in coordination with our European partners, because there is no alternative for Greece than Europe.
But that's precisely what Mr. Tsipras says. He says that he will seek a better deal for Greece with Greece's European partners. Why do you think that he's doomed to fail?
No, I'm not saying it's doomed to fail. It depends on what will be his requests. If his requests are reasonable, why not? And I just want to remind you that even before, in the previous elections in 2012, the Socialist Party has proposed the creation of a national negotiating team with Syriza in it. So that's why I'm saying that what we need is a very broad support, political support of the new government, and especially of the new negotiating team that will go to Brussels and to the European capitals to try to find a solution. We are very close. We were very close before the election to the end of the memorandum, because Greece has achieved almost all of what had to be done. So nobody can challenge the fact that Greece has made a lot of progress. And if you compare the situation of today with the situation in 2012, when this government came to office, I think there is a lot of progress that has been achieved. Now, of course, we have to put more emphasis to growth, and we have the macroeconomic stability that will allow us to go to a sustainable growth in the years to come.
And yet, despite what you describe as a success story, Greece's debt has soared to 175% of GDP. Does Mr. Tsipras have a point when he says that these levels are no longer sustainable and that part of Greece's debt must be written off?
So, sorry, I never used the term success story. I think it is not the right term to use. I said that we have avoided what could have been even worse, which could have been a wild exit from the Eurozone. As far as the debt is concerned, with the renegotiation that has already been done in 2012, I think that the Greek debt has become much more easy to serve. We have reduced the interest rate, we have extended the repayment period, but as we all know, there is a decision of all our European partners that once Greece has a primary surplus, and this is the case now, they are ready to rediscuss with us how to make the Greek debt even more viable. So the big problem for me is not the debt. The big problem is growth, because it's only through growth that you can create new places for workers, for employment, and only through growth you can make the percentage of your debt lower to what it is today. So in the years to come, the Greek debt, of course, has to be, something has to be done, but this is not the most urgent and the most important problem that the country is facing today.
Dimitris Kourkoulas, thank you very much for talking to us. I remind our viewers that you've served as Europe Minister in Antonis Samaras' coalition government.
Many thanks.
Well, and for more on the story, as I said at the beginning of the program, I'm joined now from Athens by Yiorgos Tsipras. He's Syriza's foreign policy coordinator. Thank you very much for being with us.
I'm happy to be with you.
Now, as I said, you're the foreign policy coordinator at Syriza. I believe you are the cousin of Alexis Tsipras, so you know him very well. Let me ask you, what's the mood like in the party? Does Alexis Tsipras believe that he will win this election, and will he get an absolute majority?
Well, it is almost certain that we will win the elections. I don't think that something can change these directions and the polls. But if we have or not have an absolute majority, we have to wait until Sunday.
If you don't have an absolute majority, who would be your favorite partner? We hear a lot about Topotami, a new centre-left party. Would that be a possibility?
Well, most of the parties that are now in the parliament, plus Potami, all the previous time, their main target, their main opponent was Syriza. Most of them are against the program of Syriza, so it is very difficult for them to cooperate with us.
So you feel a bit alone on in the Greek political landscape?
No, we don't feel alone because we have the support of the great majority of the Greek people, and we hope that the whole political scene will be changed after Sunday. So I think it would be a little more easy to find forces to cooperate with.
Now, Yiorgos Tsipras, let's talk about some of the most controversial points in your program that are widely discussed in Brussels, in Berlin, in Washington as well. Alexis Tsipras wants to have half of Greece's international debt written off, erased. Who will pay for this?
Well, let's begin with something that has to do with your question. There is a great interest in what will happen in Greece. I mean, I cannot recall any other parliamentary elections during the last years or even the last decades for a small country like Greece. And I think this interest is obvious, that has not only or mainly to do with what will happen in Greece only, but what will happen in Europe. So I think there is a whole problem in all Europe having to do with debt. It is not only the Greek debt. Our position is that most of the debt should be written off. We have the example of West Germany in 1953, where most of the burden of the debt was written off, and also the terms that the rest of it would be serviced were much favorable for Germany. But so we think that something like this should be also applied for us.
But how will you convince your European partners? Because you know that it's precisely your European partners, notably Germany, France, who own large chunks of the Greek debt. France owns 47 billion euro worth of Greek debt, Germany 64 billion euro. Do you believe that they're ready to let this money go?
No, we have a big problem in front of us, not only for Greece, but also for the whole of Europe. The problem of debt, it's not an easy problem, but we think that things in Europe are changing, not slowly, they are changing, I would say rapidly during the couple of years, and they all face the same problem. We have to take measures to solve the problem of debt and poverty in the whole of Europe. Now, we want to service our debt, but we want to service a viable debt. The debt that now is on the shoulders of the Greek people is not viable. So this is the crucial problem.
Mr. Tsipras has made a lot of promises, including reinstating laid-off workers, raising the minimum wage, renationalizing state assets. This is categorically opposed to what your partners have been asking for. They want Greece to reform. They don't want Greece to go back to what it was 10 years ago.
We want to reform too. You know, there was a big fear campaign inside, mainly inside Greece, not so much outside Greece, that Syriza will do this or the other thing. What is unacceptable for us is to continue a policy that brings huge unemployment and a humanitarian crisis in Greek society. So this is, in the first place, what we want to stop. We want to make reforms, but reforms that will bring again growth to Greek economy. The program that is implemented during the last 5 years has, as a result, a 26% of GDP fall. With 66% of GDP fall, we cannot service the debt. And also it completely failed even to service the debt. Our debt was 120% of our GDP in 2009, and now it is almost 180%. So it's a complete failure.
Now, the government, the ruling coalition, recognizes that it's been dramatically difficult and painful, but after 5 years of recession, Greece started to grow again. We heard on Thursday that the ECB will now agree to buy European bonds, and your critics are saying that a victory by Syriza would, in a way, undo all the progress that have been achieved and would really make the markets feel rather jittery.
Well, we think that this is a part of the fear campaign. First of all, there is no growth until now in the Greek economy. We have not seen any growth. On the contrary, we see much more poverty and unemployment for the Greek people, which will continue. If we solve the problem in Greece in some way, if we come in some terms after negotiation and find a common and mutual beneficial solution for Greece and the rest of Europe, this will be beneficial also for the rest of the Europe. So we should not hear to the fear campaign. We should listen to the logic that says that things in Greece and also the rest of Europe must change. Europe is changing.
Officials in Brussels, in Berlin, in Washington are looking at the program of Mr. Tsipras, and what they told me is that if he applies this program, there will be no other option for Greece but to leave the Eurozone. That's the so-called Grexit. What do you respond to this?
No, I think there are statements by a lot of European officials and economists, etc., that are on the contrary, that there is no Grexit in the future. And we completely agree with this. I think it's a kind of blackmail. This blackmail was applied during the last years, the blackmail of the Grexit, so as to push us and accept the bailout program, which proved to be quite catastrophic for us. I think the only option is to find a common solution so that we can service our debt, but a viable debt.
Yiorgos Tsipras, thank you very much for talking to us. I remind our viewers that you are Syriza's foreign policy coordinator.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for watching this edition of Talking Europe. Of course, France 24 will be live on Sunday evening. We'll bring you all the results from Greece as they come in. That's on France 24 on Sunday evening. Goodbye.